Hey, what's going on, my ASVAB party people? Anderson here. I'm your ASVAB coach. And so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a really specific type of interest and percent problem. So I know some of us may have heard of the problems where we're dealing with simple and compound interest, but not many of us have dealt with dealing with these problems, but backwards. So instead of being given, the initial amount, being given the simple interest percent and the number of years, what if we start with the end result and we have to work backwards to find what the initial amount was or what the interest rate was? How do we get that done? And so, with that said, my party people, we're going to do two problems with this. And if you stick to the end, I got a nice special offer for you. That way, you can go ahead and continue acing the ASVAB. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get to it. So, here we go. We have this big problem here. And what I always say, always, before you start diving into the problem itself, read the question first. Because remember, the main three steps to finding ASVAB success on the arithmetic reasoning, especially with word problems, is starting off with, hey, what information do I want? What information do I have? And then what's the connection? This gives you the opportunity to go ahead and start off by, hey, let me go ahead and understand what my end goal should be, as opposed to reading a bunch of information and then getting confused and blanking out, right? So let's go ahead and check this out here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the information that I want, and that's always going to be in the question sentence right here. How much money did Luca initially invest? So let's go ahead and write that down. What we have is, again, basically Luca's initial investment. That's what we want. So initial investment, that is what we want, equals blank dollars. Don't know what it is, but I'm going to work to figure it out. And when we're dealing with interest, remember, your initial investment is pretty much your principal amount. All right. So with that said, there we have it. Now, what information do we have? So let's write that down here. What information do I have? And so I'm going to highlight that information here in red. And so I see here that we have 3 years of investing, 12% yearly simple interest, and then that amounted to $180 in interest. So notice how we're working backwards here. We're not given what we start with, we're given what the result is. And so let me show you a really easy way to do a problem like this, and then I'm going to show you a different problem where you can still apply it in the same exact way. And so the skill that I'm going to show you here is just remembering to think about interest and percentages overall as just proportions. And so if you didn't know, remember that the part percent over 100% is the same thing as the part over the whole. It's the same thing. Remember, percents are pretty much like fractions because it's out of 100. And to make a proportion, remember this. All you have to do is compare the same things in the same way. So one more time. For a proportion, write this down. Compare the same things in the same way, and you're golden. Let me show you how to do that with this problem. First, I'm going to write down my given information. So we see 3 years. Okay, cool. Then we see 12% yearly interest, and that's simple interest. Again, simple interest. And then we have $180 that he earned in interest. So right there, the result was $180 in interest earned. And again, that's only from the interest. Only from the interest earned. So let me show you how to take this information right here and look at all that over there and just make it seem like a smooth problem. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to ask ourselves, hey, what is that initial investment? Well, that's going to be the whole. That's going to be 100% of what we started with, right? Yeah, that's going to be 100% of what we started with. If you think about it again, how much money you put in, that's the original amount. When you think about percentages, the original amount is always 100%. And so this right here, the initial investment, that is essentially related to the 100% or the whole investment that we started off with. And so I'm going to rewrite this, still with the 100 right there. But the whole, I'm going to go ahead and say, initial investment, I'm going to use P. Because remember, P stands for the principal amount. You can say it's the principal amount, the initial amount, the beginning amount, whatever you want to say. But in pure math terms, we just call it the principal, especially when it comes to the real world. So I'm going to say that that's P, and I'm going to mark that in purple here. All right. Now, let's think about, hey, what should we put in here? Well, what I'm going to put there is going to be the interest that I've earned. Because notice that this is P dollars, and so I'm going to have a dollar amount up here. And so let's just go ahead and put 180 bucks right there. And that is the interest that we earned. Remember, that's the interest that we earned. So pay attention here. You don't have to get it all right now. It doesn't have to be all at the same time here. I got you. This represents the interest. This represents the original. And remember, this over here, this 100 represents the original. And so going back to what I said earlier, remember, you got to compare the same things in the same way. Original here, original there. 100%, P dollars. Those are the original amounts. Now, up here, we have to compare the same things in the same way as well. Here we have the dollar amount for interest. Here, we need the percent for the interest. But here's the thing. I got to be very careful when I say this because this is the interest for 3 years. And so what do we need to put over here on the left side? We need to represent the interest for 3 years. Again, compare the same things in the same way. So again, 3 years. So here's a little trick behind simple interest. Since you did 12%, and that's what you earn every year, remember with simple interest, whatever you earn the first year is what you earn the second year is what you earn the third year. So it just keeps going on and on and on forever, right? And so you can do that with the dollar amount, and you can also do that with the years. So there are 2 ways you can set this up. 2 ways, and they both really make sense. If you want to put the interest for 3 years, the interest is 12%. For 3 years, that'll be 36%. That's one way you can set it up. Another way you can set it up is this other way right here. So I'm going to show you again 2 ways to set it up. That way it doesn't seem super duper confusing. So here's one way, and after I'm done, I'm going to erase it, and I'm going to show you the other way. But regardless, we have 36%, because that's 12% of interest in 3 years, times 3. Here's the interest that we have for 3 years. So now we're comparing the same things in the same way. Well, what are we going to do now? Solve the proportion. All we have to do is just cross multiply and divide. So with that, I'm going to cross multiply and divide. Or you can notice that, hey, how do we go from 36 to 180? If you know proportions, you can compare it that way, and that's a times 5 relationship. So you can times 100 by 5, and that would give you B500. Again, the only reason for that is because 36 times 5 is 180, so 100 times 5 gives you the answer, which is 500. But if you didn't know that, that's okay, because again, you can still cross multiply and divide. You're good. You can still cross multiply and divide, and you'll have 36 times P, which will give me 36P, and then 100 times 180, which gives me 18, and then 0, 0, 0, because 2 zeros here, 1 0 there. And so now we have 36P equals 800 or 18,000, excuse me. And so from there, all we got to do is divide both sides by 36, and we're good. So we'll cancel out there. So here, you can use some mental math. You can go ahead and start dividing by 2 since they're both even numbers. You're perfectly allowed to do that. Or if you want to go straight to the long division, like this, either way, you're fine. Either way, you're fine. My suggestion is just going to go ahead and simplify the fraction as best you can, and then go to long division. Because 36 going into 18 or 180, not exactly easy to see if you didn't already notice it's a times 5 relationship, right? So don't worry about that. Let's just go ahead and simplify right here. Let's just go ahead and simplify. So the simplification is going to go a little like this. I'm going to say that, hey, look, 18,000 and 36, they're both divisible by 9. You know, you can start off with 2 if you want to. You can say 4, you can do 9, you can do 3. Again, it's all about simplifying whatever way you're comfortable with. I noticed that 18,000 and 36 are both divisible by 9, so I'm going to divide them both by 9. So I'm going to cancel here. 18,000 divided by 9 will give me 2,000. Then 36 divided by 9 gives me 4. 2,000 divided by 4 gives me 500. And again, that's what P equals. Again, that's what P would have been. That's the principal amount or the initial investment. And that's how we can get B500. But let me not stop there. I'm going to go back now. I'm going to go back here to the point where I set this part up. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and show you. So I'm going to keep going backwards here. I'm going to show you that you can still do it another way. As long as you're representing the same things in the same way, you're good, seriously. So I'm going to keep going back, keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. And I believe that's as far back. Oh, there we go. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And boom. So back to where I was before. So if I wanted to, I can take a look at this and say, hey, if I earned let me use green here, or let me just use the laser pointer. If I earned 180 bucks over 3 years, if that's the interest that I earned over 3 years, well then think about it. How much would I have earned in 1 year? Again, you have to use your understanding of simple interest here. Remember, what you earn in year 1 is the same as year 2, is the same as year 3, year 4, and forever. So what that means is, if I earned 180 bucks over 3 years, that's 60 bucks per year. Because 60, 60, and 60 makes 180, right? Cool. So what I'm going to do is say, hey, look, if that's 180, that's 60 for year 1, 60 for year 2, and 60 for year 3. I know, my big old head's in the way. I know. But that's what I'm saying here. It's 60, 60, and 60 because 60 times 3 is 180, and you earn the same every year, so that's why they're the same. So I can just go ahead and put right here, 60 bucks, and that's going to be 1 year of interest. So if I wanted to match that on the left side, well, 1 year of interest would absolutely be 12%. Because again, you earn 12% per year. So you can view it this way too if you want to. You're more than happy, more than welcome to do it that way too. And so you can say 12% is what belongs right there. That's another way you can see it. And by looking at it that way, it actually makes it even more obvious how you can get to the answer nice and easy. Because you can say, hey, if I'm comparing the same things in the same way, well, how do I go from 12 to 60? Times 5. How do I go from 100 to P? Times 5. And again, that takes knowledge of proportions. With proportions, as long as you compare the same things in the same way, I know I sound like a broken record, but as long as you compare the same things in the same way, you're golden. You're absolutely golden. And so that's how you can take care of business like that, and you can still see that P equals 500. But again, even if you don't see it that way, you can still go ahead and cross multiply and divide if you want to. You can still cross multiply and divide nice and easy. And so by cross multiplying and dividing, you'll get 12P equals 60 times 100, which will give you 6,000. Then you can divide both sides by 12. Cross that out, gives you P equals. And what that's going to give you now is going to go ahead and be, well, what's 60 divided by 12? That's 5. Bring those zeros back, 500. So again, I just did this in 3 different ways. I did this in 3 completely different ways, but we still got the same answer. And so this is a problem where we wanted to solve for the initial investment, okay? And we were given the interest that we started with. Notice that the interest needed to match its percent. It had to match. When we used the 180, that was 3 years of interest. And so that was 3 times 12%. Because you earned 12% in year 1, 12% year 2, 12% year 3. So altogether, that would have been 36% earlier. 36% matches with 180, or 12% matches with $60, because if you cut the 180 by 3 to get 1 year, that's 60. So I really hope that makes sense there in some way, shape, or form. Because at the end of the day, my party people, it's all about using what you know to get these results. And working backwards isn't easy unless you really truly understand the process. So with that said, let's go ahead and try another problem out and see what we can do there. All right, so let's try this next one out right here. So the question reads, and remember, we always want to start with the question, how much money did Jim initially deposit in the account? So one more time, how much money did Jim initially deposit in the account? So what are we asking for again? How much money Jim initially deposited? So that's the principal amount, right? That's the initial amount, the starting amount. So what do we want here? Well, what we want is the principal. Again, the initial amount, right? What we started off with. And so the principal equals P dollars. And I'll go ahead and highlight that in blue. We want the principal, and that's P dollars. So let's ask ourselves, hey, what information do we have? Because watch this. This is going to work in the same exact way. Watch this. So we're going to ask ourselves, what do we have? And again, when you create your proportion, it's all about comparing the same things in the same way. If you don't compare the same things in the same way, then it's not going to work. And so that's why it's more important to ask yourself, what do these numbers mean? Not just what the numbers are. What do they mean? So that way you can set up your proportion the right way. So what do we have? We see that we have 9 years. So let me write that here. 9 years. And so we see here that it was 7% simple interest, right there. 7% simple annual interest. Simple interest. And then we have the account's current value. So notice, this is very different than the previous problem. We see that this is what the account has now, not how much interest we earned. So remember, in the previous problem, what we saw was, hey, look, we're given, again, how much money we had in interest, right? How much money we had in interest. Now we're being given how much money is in the account total. So let's ask ourselves, what does that really amount to? Like, what does that mean? So amount in account, that equals 3,749. All right. And so I'm going to move that over a little bit just because obviously my big old head's in the way. So now we can see it nice and easily there. But nonetheless, here's the idea. Here's the idea. How do you get the total amount in the account? Like, look, genuine question here. You got to really ask yourself this. How do we get to that 3749? Well, what that is how much you put in initially plus the interest that you earned, right? Because if I put in some money into the account, wait a couple of years, get some interest, what I see in the account after whatever amount of years is going to be what I put in initially plus all that interest, right? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Let me write this down for us so that way it can be as easy to understand as possible. This right here, the amount in the account, what that is the initial amount, so principal plus interest. All right, that's the principal plus the interest. And let me go ahead and just not shortchange you. Let me write that as cleanly as I can here. Plus interest. All right, my party people. So why does that even matter? Well, we're going to do the same thing again. Again, when you're working backwards with simple interest, it's super easy because all you have to do is remember that you're going to take the percent, whatever part percent divided by 100%. And that's the same thing as, again, the original on the bottom and the results up top. So we just have to make sure we match everything up. That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. And so let me show you here. If I go ahead and just start filling out the right side here, what's my initial amount? The original. That's the principal, right? That's the principal. And so I'll go ahead and write my principal out right here. P. I don't know what it is. I don't care, right? And so what goes up top? What's the result that we're looking at? Well, that's the amount in the account. That is the amount in the account. And the amount in the account is 3,749. So 3,749. Now, what are we going to put on the left side here? The left side needs to match up. It needs to match up because the original amount will be 100%. But now here's an interesting question. Again, this is the most important question of them all when matching everything up. Because again, proportions, compare the same things in the same way, right? Compare the same things in the same way and you're good. So what belongs over here? Well, if this is the original percent and this is the original amount, and over here we have the principal plus interest, then this needs to be the principal plus the interest. How do we get that? How do we get the principal plus the interest here? Well, remember, the principal plus the interest, because again, let me just remember here. So this is the initial or principal. This is the initial as well. You started with 100% of your money, right? Now over here, this is going to be principal plus interest. So this needs to be the principal percent plus the interest percent. That's what that needs to be. Again, it has to match up. It has to match up. If this over here is principal plus interest, this has to be the percent that represents the principal plus the interest. How do we get that? Well, nice and easy actually, because the principal's percent is 100%, right? We know that. We said that principal is the original amount. That's 100%. Now we're going to add on to that the interest percent. How do we get the interest percent? Right over here. Right over here. Just like we did in the last problem, we had the account for 9 years at a rate of 7% per year. So what's that going to be? What's 9 times 7, everybody? 9 times 7 is going to be 63. And that's what belongs. So right here, if I take that and I take this, 9 times 7, equals 63 total percent interest. Again, that's the interest, total interest. That's the total interest. And so for us to understand what belongs here, which is going to be the resultant percent, well, the result is going to be the 3749, right? And that is the principal plus the interest in terms of dollar amounts. And so this over here needs to match up in the percent amount. So the principal, 100%, plus the interest, 63%, put them together, and that's 163%. And so booyah, we can go ahead and set this up and solve this nice and easy. Now we can do it. How can we do it? Again, one more time, write this down before I erase it. 3, 2, 1, pause the video, blah, blah, blah. So here we go. 100 plus 63, that is 163%. So again, look, if at this point you're still like super confused, then maybe we need to start by working forward with simple interest and compound interest. And that way we can come back to this and see, oh, okay, this is actually doable. But regardless, here we go. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply and divide, and we're done. So we can go ahead and take a look at this and say, hey, 100 times 3749, that'll end up being 374900, because anything times 100, you just put 2 zeros at the end. And over here, we're going to have 163 times P, so 163P. So all we have to do now is divide both sides by 163, and we're done. So let's take that and have a good day. 163, 163, booyah. And so now we have P equals, and then here we're going to divide now. So here we can go ahead and do long division if we want to. That way we can clear things up nice and easy. So we can do 163. So I'll just have to go ahead and erase something somewhere. I'll go ahead and I'll try to do it here. If I need to erase anything, I will. So 374900. And so what I'll do here, I'll just zoom in actually. So what I'm going to do here is, hey, how many times is 163 going to 3? None, none, twice. Into 374, it goes twice because 160 times 2 is 320. So it's reasonable to say that it's going to be twice here. So we have 2. And so 163 times 2 is going to be 326 because 160 times 2 is 320. 3 times 2 is 6, so 326. We subtract here. We have a 4 minus 6, so we'll have to borrow here. So we can go ahead and borrow if we want to get a 6 there. And so we have 14 minus 6 is 8. 6 minus 2 is 4. Then we can go ahead and bring that 9 down. How many times does 163 go into 489? Well, I know that 160 times 3 is 480. 3 times 3 is 9. So 163 times 3 is 489. And again, you see how you have to know your math here? You have to know your calculation skills here because it could take you a while to do this. And so that's going to be perfect here because we're going to subtract 489. And we're done. And so now we can just take these zeros and bring them up, and we get 2,300 as the initial amount. And so I know the calculations here, they can seem a little daunting. I absolutely understand that. And I empathize with you if you believe that too. But again, what the point of all of this is, to show you how you can use a proportion here with percents to get simple interest problems done nice and easily. Super easy, super easy. You can actually use this to go forward as well as backwards. But notice how we got 2,300, and that would be the answer choice D, and we're good to go. So look, my party people, here's the thing. What I've done in both of these problems is I used the proportion for percents. Because again, percents are ratios. And so the part percent over 100% needs to be the part over the whole. In the case of interest and investing and things like that, the 100% represents the principal amount, the initial amount. So notice how P was there both times. Then the result, what you're dealing with, the number that they give you, it can be the amount of interest that you have, so 180, or if you divide that by the 3 years to get 60, it could have been either one. Just make sure that the percent matches the number that you're using. Compare the same things in the same way. So boom, there it is there, and there it is here. Notice, you have to make sure principal plus interest percent. It's all about comparing the same things in the same way, my party people. Seriously. And so with that said, I do want to invite you to really further your understanding of this. Because, yeah, I just made this video here, put it up on YouTube. But what if you had all of the practice that you needed without having to look anywhere else? You know, this is just a sample of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of problems that it can be available to you. And I would love to invite you to start off by joining one of my free classes actually. That way you don't pay a dime until you see that, yeah, this is actually the way I want to learn. And so I invite you to join a free class of mine, start off with a free practice pack. But if you've already tried that out, hey, make sure you're joining my Facebook group. That way you can see the periodic posts that I put up. But if you're already in there too, then it's time to go ahead and upgrade. I really do want you to understand that you can get the score you want and the military job you deserve. And so with that said, I invite you to tackle and join my All Access Pass, where you can get great live instruction, you can get the recordings, you can get problems with step-by-step video solutions, and my support all the way until a passing score. Again, it doesn't have to be confusing. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to go through the frustration of test anxiety and figuring out what to study on your own. I can help you all the way, so just all you have to do is reach out to me, and you're good to go. You can go ahead and text me at 567-698-8867. You can text me and I'll go ahead and help you out. A-okay, no problem. I'll introduce you to all of my resources and free resources or the All Access Pass, whatever you want to use, or you can check the description of this video to get the same links. And so with that said, my party people, you guys are awesome. Stay awesome. Reach out to me if you want to raise your score, and let's get to it. Let's Ace the ASVAB. Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button up here. That way you can get more great content from us, or text ASVAB to that number. That way you can join us for a free class and get a free mini course at the same time. And then look forward to the next video. That way you can continue crushing it and raising your score. Anderson, your ASVAB coach here. See you next time.